Hey guys, Christina here. I'm a single mom of 3 little girls. I am a full-time lab tech, a part-time baker, a dog mom, and now a YouTuber. I wanted to start out by thanking everybody for all their positive feedback on my first video. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate all the ideas. I've got a list now of videos that you guys are interested in seeing. Today I wanted to talk about something that I have been dealing with for about 9 years, which is kidney stones. I know they are quite common, but when I do something, I do it big. And so most of the kidney stones that I've had have had to be surgically removed because they were just too large to pass on their own. So I want to talk to you guys about my first experience with kidney stones and so on. So the first time that I had kidney stones, I had no idea what it was. I just started having this awful pain kind of on my side, down towards my stomach. And so it was just unbearable. I went to urgent care, and the first thing they did was do a pregnancy test, and it came up positive. And I had no idea that I was pregnant. We were not trying. And so I was just in complete shock. And so they told me, you're pregnant and you have this horrible pain. You may be having a miscarriage. And they sent me to the ER. When I got to the ER, they did some scans, some blood work, and told me the same thing. They said, you're pregnant and you're having this pain. It's probably a miscarriage and there's nothing that we can do. They sent me home and told me if it starts up again, come back in and we can see if we can do anything. So later that night, the pain started again. I went back to the ER and they told me the same thing. They said that I was probably having a miscarriage and that there was nothing that they could do. And so later that night, I went back home. The pain kind of subsided a little bit. Then the next day I went to my OB. He looked over the scans and the blood work, and he didn't see anything else. And so he told me the same thing, go home, rest, take care of yourself. Once I went home that night, it started up again. And so then I called the on-call doctor, and thankfully then I got a woman doctor. And she looked at everything again, and she looked at the scans, and she noticed that I had a 1/2-inch kidney stone lodged in my ureter. So the stone had started making its way down and gotten stuck. So the pain that I was having was my kidney filling up with urine and not being able to let that urine move down. And so the kidney was just inflaming. So what they had to do, since I was pregnant, they weren't able to perform surgery on me because of how early I was. And so they ended up putting in a nephrostomy tube, which is a tube that is inserted into your kidney and goes down into a bag. And that is for the urine to drain down into the bag. So there I was, pregnant, an early pregnancy, very nauseous. And now I had this tube out of my back going into a urine bag that I had to drain whenever it would get full. And also had to clean out that tube at least once a day or a few times a day so that I wouldn't get an infection. That was the only instructions that I was giving. And so that's what I did. But I was also supposed to wrap it when I took a shower, and I was never told that, which now it seems like common sense. But at the time I didn't know. So I ended up getting an infection, a very bad infection. And the tube that was in my kidney, the nephrostomy tube, actually became crystallized. And so the way the tube is, it goes into your kidney and then it kind of curls down. And so what they wanted to do was insert a larger one in case I was to get another infection. But when they did the procedure to remove that nephrostomy tube and place the larger one in there, the tube had crystallized. So they were not able to insert anything to unravel it. It was stuck. So they ended up having to yank it out of my back. And it was so painful that I remember just throwing up there on the procedure table. And I had the greatest nurse. He was so nice, and he was rubbing my head and comforting me. After they placed that second nephrostomy tube in there that was a little bit larger, and now that I knew that I was supposed to get it covered when I took a shower, the rest of the pregnancy was a little bit smoother. Once I was in my second trimester, then they were able to perform the surgery and remove the stone. So what they did was remove the nephrostomy tube, go into that hole in my back, and then remove the kidney stone. And then the rest of my pregnancy, went on much smoother. A few years after that, I started back up with that same pain. I was actually working in an ED at that time, and I remember it was just one tech at a time. And so I started with this pain. It was awful. And so what I did, I was the only person there, and I didn't want to call anybody to come in. So I got a trash bag, and I was throwing up because of the pain, but I would throw up, the pain would cease a little bit, and I would keep working. And then once I was done with my shift, I clocked out, and then I checked myself in as a patient. And so then, my coworkers were doing the scans on me, and then the doctor told me, you have, a large kidney stone. That's when I learned about all the options that are available for kidney stones. So my first experience, they put in the nephrostomy tube, and then they went in through that hole and removed it. But they could also do something called lithotripsy. And so this is what they tried first. So for the lithotripsy, you're lying on this bed, and they have like these sound waves or something kind of banging on it with vibrations and breaking up the stones from the outside. It's really weird how that works, but it does work. I remember laying on that bed for 45 minutes, hearing that banging noise, and it was so painful. But then after a couple of days, I started using the restroom. I would urinate, and the stone was coming out in little pieces, and I ended up filling up a whole little cup with little pieces of rock. And it's just so weird how your body can create something like that. Another option that they have is a ureteroscopy. That's when they go up through your urethra, and they use a laser to either cut it and then remove the stone. So I also had to get that done. I mean, I was just full of stones. I don't remember how many I had now, but I just remember having at least 2 sessions of the lithotripsy, at least 2 ureteroscopies. And then I remember passing another one on its own. And so at that point, I think I was finally clear of kidney stones. And my urologist told me was that it's very important to get rid of all the stones, because when you have a stone in there, it kind of changes the environment, and it just makes it a perfect environment for more stone creations. And so after each kidney stone removal or each procedure that I had, they did send off what they could to be analyzed, and then they would also do a 24-hour urine to see what was the cause of, me forming these kidney stones. And unfortunately, they haven't really been able to tell me. A lot of times it is a dietary issue. And so if you have kidney stones, I would suggest definitely up your water intake, decrease your sodium intake. You just really need to take care of yourself. The doctor also put me on a diuretic to kind of help flush everything out. And then they also suggested lowering your meat intake. And there are also a lot of natural diuretics that you can consume. You can make teas out of and try to drink those throughout the day and help flush everything out. The last time that I passed a kidney stone was actually 2 weeks ago. It's been 2 years since the stone before that. And so you kind of forget about it after a while. So I started having this discomfort again, but I wasn't sure what it was. And I went to the doctor because I said, maybe I have a UTI or something. When I went to go give my sample, the stone actually came out into the cup, and I was just in shock because I had no idea that that's what was causing me that pain. And I had been suffering from pain kind of in my lower abdomen for 2 or 3 days. And if I hadn't gone to the doctor and given that urine sample, I probably would have just passed it, flushed it down the toilet, and never known. But I just think it's amazing how your body can make something so hard, so painful. Let me know if you've ever had kidney stones or anything, gallbladder stones. Does your body make crazy things? And let me know if you like these kind of story time videos. Let me know if you have any other ideas of things that you'd like for me to talk about. Don't forget to like and to subscribe.